The Ukrainian Air Force has struck houses where Russian soldiers have gathered in various directions of the front, including in the town of Tyatkino in the Kursk region of Russia. Ukrainian fighters in the Kursk region carried out the strikes with US-made JDAM bombs. As a result, the houses were destroyed and the invaders there were killed. In the occupied territories, Ukrainian fighters targeted houses where the invaders gathered with mainly US-made GBU and French-made Hammer aerial bombs. As a result of the strikes, several houses and dozens of soldiers there were destroyed. The houses where the invaders gathered have also become targets for drone operators. As can be seen from the footage circulated on Telegram channels, the invaders, who approached one of the half-destroyed houses with armored combat vehicles and tried to take up positions there, were unable to do so and became victims of drones. Hangars where the occupying Russian army soldiers stored military equipment also became victims of airstrikes. It should be noted that Ukrainian aviation has increased its strikes on Russian army positions in the occupied territories, as well as in the border regions of Russia. As a result of strikes carried out with Western-made aerial bombs, a significant number of personnel and military equipment of the occupying Russian army were destroyed.
The situation in the southern part of the Donetsk front is difficult for the Ukrainian armed forces. It was here that the Russian army advanced the farthest in June and captured the most territory. Recently, there was a breakthrough to the village of Shevchenko, and the villages of Yalta and Perabudova were captured. All this became the reason for panicky statements that the Ukrainian armed forces front allegedly collapsed. Military expert Yan Matveyev explained in his blog why such statements do not correspond to reality. We've heard something like this about 10 times in the last couple of years, and then suddenly it turned out that everything was more or less okay with the front, and the rapid advance of the Russian army ended with an unexpected stabilization. That's how it is in Sumy Oblast. Indeed, in early June, Russian troops actively crossed the border and immediately occupied a significant area. But then they ran into the defense of the Ukrainian armed forces, and over the last 3 weeks since June the 9th, Putin's units have not advanced a single kilometer. On the contrary, the Ukrainian armed forces counterattacked and liberated Andriivka. He added, experts say that in some areas the Russian army forced to retreat. In war, there are different indicators by which a particular target is important or not. For example, logistical value. Remember, in the fall of 2022, the Russian army controlled Kherson and a huge territory on the right bank of the Dnieper And then something happened. The destruction of just one bridge forced the entire Kherson group to urgently retreat across the river. The bridge turned out to be more valuable and important for the military than an entire regional center. When assessing the situation at the front, it is important to see the big picture, and here it is. The Novopavlovsk direction is secondary, unlike Pokrovsk, Konstantinovsk and Sumpsk, because even in the distant future the Russian army has no significant goals here. He added, cities, roads, bridges, other objects, by capturing which it would be possible to seriously change the situation in its favor. What is happening in other directions? In Sumy, the Ukrainian armed forces have stopped the Russian offensive. To the east of Pokrovsk, the maximum advance in one area in the village of Koptevo in June was 6 kilometers. In order to reach the outskirts of Pokrovsk and threaten the city from the east, another 17 to 18 kilometers must be covered. And that is, if they manage to cross the Kazany-Torets River and overcome the Ukrainian defenses. In the Konstantinovsky direction, the movement from the south is only about 3 kilometers in less than a month of June. For example, Russian troops were already in the village of Romanovka on June the 1st. Today, the front line still runs through the village of Romanovka. Here, the advance is generally 0 kilometers in a month, and it is from Romanovka that one of the convenient roads of Konstantinovka goes. It is even more curious to look at the northern part of the Toretsk salient. There, Russian troops have been trying to capture the city of Chasov Yar for a year and a month, but they have not been able to. They have been stuck there for all this time and are not moving either towards Konstantinovka or towards Kramatorsk. But of course, the Russian military is attacking in many areas, and little by little, a kilometer or two per month, they are capturing at least something somewhere, just to draw an excellent report about how many square kilometers have come under their control, the expert said.